Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I want to introduce myself and what it is that I do. Basically, I'm into wildlife and almost everything that I do centers around that. And for that purpose, just as an example, the vehicle I drive is something that allows me to go to the places I go to. And it's outfitted in a way that allows me to have a really mobile kind of a command center where I can easily duck out and take shelter if I need to, spend the night if I need to, and it's extremely convenient. And I'm not really here to talk about vehicles or all the stuff that helps me to do what I do. What I want to talk about is the fact that I don't see myself as an educator, and at the same time, the information that I'm presenting is extremely insightful. And I say that because I'm seeing a lot more things on my journey that many people don't necessarily see. A lot of people who know me in person have ridden along with me to the places that I go to. One of my favorite stomping grounds is Big Bend National Park. And Big Bend National Park is one of those places where you could spend a lifetime there and still barely scratch the surface of what there is to learn. Just as an example, as the climate has changed, especially over the recent 3 to 5 years, the vegetation has kind of dwindled quite a bit. And I've discovered several cave systems that are not normally something you can see. And the way that I discovered those was by watching the wildlife. You can watch bears walking around on ridges and ducking into areas where they disappear for hours, and then they'll come back out, emerging from supposedly, basically out of thin air. Not supposedly, but virtually out of thin air. And they're not coming out of thin air, they're coming out of the caves where they went to take a break, maybe get some rest, whatever. And some of those things are things that people would not notice if they weren't observing the wildlife for long enough. There's been several instances where I've traveled with friends who have seen animals cross into a ravine, and then after a few moments, sometimes I try to combine words. After a few moments, they will kind of lose focus. A lot of us are losing focus right now. And because of that fact that we're losing focus, it's hard for us to have intelligent conversations where we understand what one another is saying. And in some instances, we will just become kind of upset by what the other person says, even if it's a situation that we're talking about that needed to be addressed to begin with. On this channel, I like to talk about wildlife and nature because, again, that's one of my primary focuses. That's one of the things that really interests me. And the way that I got to where I am was by working in the tech industry. And the tech industry paid me well enough to take on some of these hobby-like adventures to the point where it was no longer a hobby. And I left my tech career to tell this story. And so you're on this page kind of learning a little bit about me, and I'm learning a lot about you because when you interact with me on my page, I'm able to better formulate what it is that I'm saying in a way that better resonates with you. And on that note, one of the things that I recently started trying to do was to help us all to sing a new tune. In order for us to change the world, we have to change our tune. And so I've started recently trying to write songs about different things to try and capture the sentiment of what it is that I'm experiencing around me, and to do it in a way that's not all doom and gloom, that's not going to cause panic, and that's not going to cause anxiety. But in this world, like I say, some of the things that we talk about in any direction can cause potential anxiety. So I hope that you're taking a moment to really hear what I'm saying on this channel and to really see what's being presented and to really interact with one another, not just with me on this page, but to interact with one another in a way where our ripples of sound resonate with one another, where our actions resonate with one another in positive ways. And for me, even though I'm still trying to learn to sing presentably, I have learned to sing while I'm playing guitar. And so I've also taken on a direction where I try to incorporate making music that talks about these stories, about our environment and the wildlife that is in those environments. And in our rural areas, we might notice a little bit that some of the wildlife is starting to encroach on our residences. In our urban and suburban areas, we might notice the same thing. But out in the actual places of wilderness, I'm noticing things that are telling an entirely different story. The wildlife in some of these areas is on such a decline that you can't see as much wildlife as you would have seen in the past. Again, in the past 3 to 5 years, there's been such a massive change that some of the wildlife and habitat has been devastated in ways where you may not see some of the things that you used to see. So for those of us who have been familiar with going to these national parks in the past and state parks and wildlife areas, and who have now taken the easy chair route of retirement and not come back out to visit these areas, I strongly encourage that you re-emerge and reestablish your connection with nature to try and help to add to the voices that are speaking for nature from a place of compassion. And in so doing, we will be speaking for one another, with one another, from a place of compassion during these challenging times. So if you're into things like wildlife and nature and you want to try to make a difference, that's what this page is about. That's what this channel is about. So I hope that you choose to subscribe. I hope that you choose to be patient with one another, including me, as we learn to make our way through these new situations in meaningful ways that help to reduce the challenging times that we have currently set in front of us. I know that the news can be talking about a lot of different things. Constantly, it's shifting from one terrible story to another terrible story. And we rarely really focus on the success stories. And sometimes we need to look at wildlife and see how wildlife is succeeding. And in some cases, wildlife is teaming up with other wildlife in ways that you wouldn't have expected. So I believe that we, as humanity, can do the same thing if only we learn to spend a little bit of time stopping and to smell the flowers, I guess, with nature in mind, and also trying to use sayings that have been said before. So to stop and smell the roses, well, we really also should be stopping to observe the wildlife and consider that maybe if we all learn to sing a new tune, maybe we can help one another to quickly resolve some of the matters that we have been faced with in the past. For me, wildlife and nature is in jeopardy. My family's level of communication is in jeopardy because of the way that we get so sometimes uptight with the very topics that we touch on. And that really, that's a thing of the past. That's an egocentric way to live. And imagery, can cause, like the pictures that are over my shoulders here. Imagery can cause people to form judgments. Even the way that I look can cause people to form some kind of a judgment as far as whether or not we would want to learn with one another. We are all teachers and we are all students. So I don't consider myself an educator, and at the same time, like I say, I've got things that I can help you to learn, just like I know that you've got things that you can help me to learn. And that's not just from a selfish point of view. The point is we can all learn things from one another. So if you like learning, if you like to ride along on virtual journeys, if you're not able to do it currently in person on your own, And if you have any kind of compassion for wildlife and for one another, I hope that you choose to subscribe to this channel. And I thank you so much for even giving me these few minutes of consideration. Until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.